The gospel text for this Sunday is taken from part of the mission discourse of the Gospel of Matthew. And in these verses, we can decipher 3 points which the Lord is making. And the first of these is fearlessness. The phrase, "do not be afraid," is mentioned twice. It is repeated. The second is about the worth and who we are in God's eyes. And the third, about acknowledging the Lord. In the first part, the Lord invites his disciples and everyone whom he sends on mission to be fearless. Whom are they to be fearless against? What are they to be fearless about? They are to be fearless about any and every consequence of being faithful to mission. It is very likely that when the disciples are faithful to mission, disciples are faithful to the word of the Lord, which is a word of justice, which is a word of mercy, which is a word of reaching out, which is a word of peace, which is a word of love. Not everyone will be happy to hear that word. Some will reject that word, others will reject the word and also the missionary who proclaims that word and lives it out. This is why the Lord repeats this phrase when he tells his disciples, "Do not be afraid of proclamation. Do not be afraid of those who can hurt only this external body." In other words, the Lord is calling us to fearlessness. Fear and mission cannot go together. One cannot be a frightened missionary. If mission has to become a reality, if the kingdom which Jesus inaugurated and proclaimed has to become real today, a kingdom of justice, a kingdom of peace, a kingdom of love, then missionaries have to proclaim that kingdom fearlessly, no matter what the consequences. What is important for us as missionaries is to realize that our job is not to worry about what will happen after we proclaim. That will be in the hands of the Lord. Our job is to proclaim as fearlessly and as courageously, as honestly as we can. That means we have first to live out the mission and proclaim then what we have lived out. Then our word becomes action and our action becomes word and it becomes more intelligible. It becomes more meaningful to those who hear and those who experience. The Lord is asking us to be fearless because of what he says in the second point of today, that we are valuable, we are priceless, we are precious in the eyes of the Lord. And the Lord explains how this is so when he says that God is aware of every single bird in this universe. God is aware of every single flower and plant and tree in this universe. If God is aware of the plant and the bird and the tree and the animal, how much more is God aware of us? And Jesus is asking us to realize that we are unique and special and priceless in the eyes of God, so much so that every hair of our head, and those who do not have hair on the head, every other part of the body is counted. The point which the Lord is making is that the God, the Father, knows every single part of us and loves us unconditionally. That is why we are precious. And that is why in the final exhortation which the Lord gives us, He says that we must bravely profess His kingdom. We must bravely profess that love is primary, that love is more than fear, and that love conquers fear, and that even though there is injustice, even though there is oppression, even though there is selfishness and self-centeredness, we must not let that overwhelm us. And we are given an example of how it could overwhelm us in the first reading of today, when Jeremiah says to God that there are so many disparaging him. They are telling Jeremiah not to have hope. They are telling Jeremiah to give up. They are telling Jeremiah that he must not be faithful to mission. But Jeremiah listens to their condemnation. Jeremiah listens to their disparaging remarks. Jeremiah listens to all of they speak, which is negative. And Jeremiah turns to the one who is positive. Jeremiah turns to the one who sustains him. Jeremiah turns to the one who he knows will hold him. And Jeremiah is faithful to mission, despite the fact that evidence is to the contrary, despite the fact that what he sees seem to be going against mission. Jeremiah will not give up. Jeremiah will not give in. At this time of COVID-19, we are living in this precarious, fragile situation. All around us, whether in the news, whether in the newspapers, whether on social media, we notice that so many are being infected, so many are dying, so many are this and so many are that, and this often negative news like Jeremiah received. And that negative news can frighten us. That negative news cannot allow us to live in the present moment. And for us who are frightened, the Lord is saying twice in the gospel text of today, do not be afraid. Even as we are fearless, even as we look at this COVID-19 in the eye, we are not reckless, but we are brave, we are courageous, we are strong. And because of our bravery, because of our courageous nature, and because of our strength which the Lord will give us, we can indeed overcome. This is how, through our bravery, through our fortitude, through our strength, we can be faithful to mission and show to those around that the God we believe in is not a God of death. That the God who believe in is a God of life who has counted every single hair on anyone and everyone's head. Let us then remember, as Paul tells us in the second reading of today, if death came to the first Adam, life has come through the second Adam, Jesus. Whenever Jesus speaks of God, he always speaks about him as a God not of the dead, but of the living. Let us proclaim such a God courageously today, not only and not merely by our words, but by the kinds of persons that we are. Amen.